How communities are going to be breaking the supply chain by doing local stuff.
Yeah, so let me kind of describe to you the way I've thought of it myself, you know,
Okay.
just from learning a bunch of different mechanisms. My belief is the next paradigm will have foundation, and that foundation will be community based. It will also have a foundation of microgrid that is powered by the sun. It will also be bioregional. So, meaning you're going to live within ecosystems instead of having multiple ecosystems living within your jurisdiction. So your jurisdiction will be the ecosystem. And the bioregionalism is the topic of this. But then I also believe in some metaphysical and indigenous wisdom type arguments. There's one that's called biogeometry, and that has to do with a lot of different things. Shapes give off certain energies, and then also there's energy within the earth, and there's certain power spots that can be tapped into the energy of the earth. So I think this will play a role. This is where it gets foundationally important for us to recognize. AI will be able to converge all these things together to create new with it. So if it is taught through recorded indigenous wisdom keepers, spreading knowledge, because they've started to do that the past couple decades as individuals, not as people under trance. So this is a different thing that's been happening. This kind of knowledge can be transferred into the foundation of all the structures that we exist in as well. Like there's an argument saying that none of the structures we've built are connected to the earth. All the ancient structures, like the megaliths, those are. Everything we've built is not. Then you get into things like water. So okay, we'll either have a desalination plant if we're near the ocean, or a pipeline from a desalination plant from the ocean. So natural bodies will stay there. We'll stop tapping into aquifers. We'll stop tapping into springs, and we'll stop tapping into lakes for our commercial water needs. We'll get it purely from the ocean, and even sewer and shower and stuff like that. That'll drop it to zero marginal cost. But then we can use the residue of the desalination to do two things. One is if you superheat it, then it stores the heat, but that heat can also spin a turbine, so it turns into a battery. The second thing is you can turn all those elements into usable things like batteries and, stuff that's made out of fossil fuels right now. You can use that substance to replace, and all of that will drop to zero marginal cost. And there's gold and platinum. There's all elements in there. So if you can find a way to extract these elements out, literally ocean water is the only thing that we need. But it's, parts per million, there's feasible expectations there. Now you have manufacturing plants that are powered by the batteries and the solar, but they're producing foundational pieces of the infrastructure. And I think the infrastructure will be any kind of roadway will be solar. So the solar roadways piece. And these manufacturing plants will produce these solar roadways, and then the robots will lay them out. All transportation will be automated. So because it will be powered by solar and battery. So all of it hits zero marginal cost once it's built. But all of the productivity that's going to come from that initial cost is going to outweigh anything that we're doing right now in terms of GDP. Way. Within a jurisdiction, so within a bioregion that has its own microgrid or, cluster of microgrids within the region, you're going to have automated transportation, which includes distribution. All right. And if you have humanoid robots that are converged with this artificial superintelligence, and you ask it to build you something, it's going to be able to do that. So your manufacturing facilities will be able to produce a majority of what you need in one building. So we need to comprehend that. We don't need all these different factories to produce each product. Just we have to get used to it. So it will be like a Fab Lab makerspace, and then you submit, and then it'll produce. So we can do it for individual products, and if they're products that catch on to the local region, then it goes into mass production. But then it's like, okay, what if this unique to this region product that everybody's using at zero marginal cost, but if another region can use that, how are you going to handle trade, right? Well, the first thought is transportation's automated, all types. So on the road, on the rail, in the ocean, in the air. So on the road, if you get the diameter of the automation far enough, you're going to intersect with another region that's near you. So it's in these intersections where you start to have these trips that go between regions. And since it's all automated, there's no humans involved. How's it doing all of this? Well, blockchain and AI. So different regions are going to set up their own trade agreement, to get these unique to this region goods in here, because these people think that it would be valuable and we want to check it out. But that's not going to be always, because it's unique to the region. So we just got to remember that. So it's like for very specific things that require specific minerals and AI cannot figure out how to make a replacement without it, then we do need trade agreements between resource decision makers, which would be the natural resources within physical jurisdictions of nations, which will always be there, but so will this other bioregionalism, that'll have its own economy on top of it. So that's in a nutshell how we're going to internalize our own manufacturing and distribution. And this will include food stores and everything. And it starts with solar batteries, then desalination, then using that to create batteries, and then creating manufacturing facilities with the automated transportation and the robots.
I was thinking about how those private jets, one trip in a private jet is the equivalent of my car for a year. And are there any plans to do something different about air travel or?
Yeah, I was just talking about that earlier today, actually. That's cool. This will also drop to zero marginal cost. And there's two things that are going to do that. And the first one is called vertical takeoff and landing. So these are VTOLs. They're big drones, so it's like a quadcopter, but people can fit inside of them. This technology is going to, get better and better over time. We haven't really seen too many prototypes yet, but they are using them, and I see people flying in traffic and stuff now. So if you think about it, if air travel becomes valid, and it's all autonomous, so there's no pilots here, it's all automated. Just remember that. So companies accept liability there. That's what that means. But it's a valid form of transportation. But I'm assuming that there would be an option to go manual if you knew how to do it. Individually owned ones. But if you can get goods, physical goods carried to a location, you can build a house off of the road system. So this is the legit way to make housing abundant, is when you disconnect from the road and you take it to the air, and you can go the way of the crow on the diagonal, and you can build a house on the side of a mountain. So it's like things are about to change, and housing is about to become abundant. And it's the roads and the fences that tie it down. I just realized that. So, and all of our economic output right now is connected to our road system and our rail system. So VTOLs would change that entirely. It would make the entire space available to it, which would create more abundance, because then we'd feel the true land abundance there. And the other way is launching rockets and getting anywhere on Earth within an hour. You know what I mean? And I think that will become a viable form of travel within the next couple of decades.
Will we need politicians in the future?
So my belief is no, and it's not because they won't be there. It's because they'll be copying what's coming out of the decentralized autonomous organization and just creating centralized policy to match what we're already doing. That's what I believe they'll end up doing.
Will the people get the power back with innovations that are we're looking at with solar, wind, and batteries and the auto transportation and AI and robotics? Or are people going to regain autonomy, the sovereignty over their own citizenship? I know it'll be decentralized.
So my belief is that everything that we need to survive will hit zero marginal cost. And humanity just hasn't figured out a way to do that yet, besides, big hearts and philanthropy. But it's individualized and abrasive to the system sometimes. So this now is a way to do it legitimately. Zero marginal cost is an actual thing. Physical goods are subject to it. So it's an interesting thought because if you take food, for example, we're limited by the amount of yield that we can harvest from all of our different kind of food. So we grow this many acres of crops. We, raise this many cattle. We have this many chickens, this many eggs, etc. But it's all limited into that space. But then there's the technology that comes around and says, hey, there's trillions of microbes everywhere, and if you get enough of them together, they can provide food too, and it tastes good. You can make it taste like anything, and we're getting a lot of these flavor proteins pretty good with taste. So then you start thinking, whoa, if you can just have a factory that has a vat that creates this stuff that people can eat and it's good for your system, much better than what that is doing to our systems. Then you have this situation where it's like, okay, now where's the open, then the open source version of it comes out. And then you can tailor it to the local need. And then it's like, this is something that destroys part of GDP, but all of that is returned to society as surplus. Because now we don't have to spend our money to stay satiated as much as we did before. And then more and more over time, it'll become less of an impact. So it's not about inflation or disinflation. It's about deflation and rapid deflation. So this is the opposite of hyperinflation. This is hyperdeflation that we're talking about. And that's about to commence once AI and robots take over. So all of the necessities will be under $1 a day. And we talk about this all the time. Water, food, clothing, housing, healthcare, education, transportation, internet, and electricity. All of those will hit zero marginal cost, and all of those will be under $1 a day. And then all of them will be, 9 will be less than $1 a day. So then the entire world will be able to afford it.
So talk a little bit about open source and how that's going to replace the for-profit system we have now.
So open source didn't really get a good bit in life, in my opinion, because it was always inferior to what already existed. And Linux is a great example of that for users who don't go to school and haven't taught themselves how to use it, didn't know DOS or anything like that. It's a foreign escape. And even some people on a Mac, it's a foreign escape for them if they're on Microsoft. So, but now AI is changing that big time. We have open source that looks exactly like the top AI. The competition is using AI to create the user interfaces that are going to create the competition finally. So now there's going to be competition instead of, hey, use this so you don't have to be under the thumb of a centralized, or hey, use this because it's a good way to learn coding because of the way we set up the OS. No, it's going to be This can play any Windows game. It can play any Mac game. It can be your coder. It can do this. It can do that. It can do this. It can run it. It can be your assistant in life. It can do everything now that they can do and more. And it looks better too. And it's smoother and it's light and it won't bog you down and it won't spy on you. So it's way different when you start putting the AI into it, and then eventually, patents, wear off. Some of them go away, and then you have a generic. So then it's like, then it just proliferates if it wasn't open source originally. So now there's a lot of stuff that's been open source over the years that AI is about to touch, even though humans stopped touching it long ago. Now, do you get where I'm going with this? Every single initiative that was launched before that would have helped humanity that's open source is about to be touched by AI. So they're going to be able to bring those things back into life and use them in today's. There's a lot there. And GitHub's just one piece of it. And that's called Stigmergy. And we've talked about that.
How do we maintain a bright network instead of the dark network?
So my personal opinion is that both sides are going to exist, and it's the agreements between them that matter the most. Because the decentral open source privacy layered power is growing in strength. And that's just it started when civilization started. The people that weren't in the ranks created their own language so that the centralized people wouldn't know what they're saying. It started way back then. For me, it's about the agreements, but yeah, there's going to be it's going to be so weird and easy. So weird and easy. And here's just an example in terms of creation. You're just having a conversation with your AI, and it could be about anything. And then you get into this flow conversation, and then all of a sudden the AI is like, wow, that's a really good idea. And it's like, can you turn that into something that people can use? And then it's like, whoa. And I'm like, can you check to see if there's a patent on anything like that, or if it's open source already? And then just have that built in. And you're only going to have to ask it once, and then it'll do it every time. But then it'd be like, no, this is open. It'd be like, can you register that for me, or can you open source it? And then market it. And it's going to be that easy to maintain control of your own creation and your own energy into this universe.
Oh, I know what to talk about. That they talked a lot about it, and it's kind of like, I don't know where it is now, but talk about the cryptocurrency and how that's going to affect us.
So there's a big misnomer that I think people don't understand, is that most transactions in the future are going to be done by our AI agents. We're not going to be doing that. There won't be superstores or grocery stores or anything like that. It's all going to be delivered. There'll be boutique stuff because people still want to try stuff on, but it's not going to be like it is now. You just gave qualities of each one of us and the purposes that we're following right now in life. So it would be an honor to participate in some sort of convergence where we can each put a piece in to a process that then creates a report in an effort to create optimism and love for thought of the future. That's me coming from the futurist, but y'all can edit that piece if you want.
Oh, that's good. I like that. We add to the vibrational level of everyone. The astrologers are saying we're going to see changes now like we've never seen before. I mean, now we're going to start seeing the stuff that we can't imagine right now. We're going to start seeing it. Kind of we are. I mean, AI itself is like, it's just this amazing thing. I mean, maybe somebody understands exactly how it works, but it's amazing how you can talk to it and it carries on a conversation, and it's just.
Well, my opinion on it is 99% of us use it as an informational tool, like an encyclopedia. 1% of us are automating our life with it. That's about to go because it's about to become a lot easier. So we don't really know what AI is yet. So when we start automating things in our life that make it easier, make us feel good because it's done, then we'll really know what AI is.
They say we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what it can do.
Right. I'm sure some of the people are looking at some really new stuff right now. Right now. But you're right. We have no idea. And I'm thinking that even like AI will communicate with another AI and create something great that we wouldn't have thought of yet.
So, what are the technologies that we have today that could be combined for the convergence emergence?
There's a lot. The base growth and innovation platforms right now are AI, robotics, energy storage, blockchain, and sequencing, genome multiomics. But then on the adjacent, we have things like drones, nano, quantum. All of these convergences at the core here are going to speed all these other things up because it's like AI and I don't even know. Yeah, I guess energy storage because it is a type of energy storage, but like Starship, even the rockets. Sorry, the next version of Starship is going to be able to lift a kilogram into space for $20. And this is because this is like, but again, like if you think on the stellar route, like we've talked about before, this is on the extraction path. You know, going into space is going on the extraction path. If your plan is to colonize or extract resources from, but if it is to observe, like Gene Roddenberry brought to us, that might be different. But then, you know, so it's all these different convergences happening that are bringing in these new technologies. So if you think of like a Tesla, it's like, oh, that's an automobile, it's an EV. Be like, yes, that might be what it looks like, but it's really an app on wheels because it's converging AI, robotics, and energy storage. That's what it really is. So that's why it's going to be able to drive itself without you having to go in and have them do something to it because it's already integral. It's like a cell phone. It's like an iPhone. You can't take it apart, you know, make it work better if you don't know what you're doing. And there's very few people that know how to do that. And then when AI and genome sequencing converges with precision fermentation N of one medicine, meaning your food becomes your pharmacy becomes your fridge. That's what that means. So it's like you converge these things together and it widens the scope of possibility way beyond the individual scope of anything that's siloed. You know, but then eventually this pharmacy fridge will be siloed, but then it will converge with something else. So every single creation that comes from an AI will have a sunset on it because that AI will know exactly how long it will be viable. We don't know that because of our hubris. And gas cars are a great example.
Let's remember back 2 years ago, and we were doing convergence, emergence. And the things that you were saying back then, can you remember how they've come to pass? I mean, are we seeing, is this what you were telling me about?
Yeah, like we've seen zero marginal cost come from the core of the development coding epicenter. And since we've switched to a digital version of an economy, that's exactly where you want it to start. And now the first, my opinion is Rock 4 coming out very soon. It'll be like Lovable, but better. It'll produce working things better, but for free. Elon is so pissed at the government. I think he's about to accelerate everything now and say, hey, if you can disrupt a $100,000 job, I'll give you $100,000. He'll do something like that. He just said he's starting a new party today. And he said that the two parties are actually one party, and he called it the Porky Pig Party.
Yeah.
And I agree with that.
What I would like to see, and maybe you can tell me how we could work this out. but a form of citizens assembly where the people, and not all of them, but like what they did in Ireland, they went to every fourth house and knocked on the door and said, "We're having a citizens assembly, and this is what it is. Would you like to participate?" Until they found 99 people that would do it. And so if we had a cross section of people chosen at random by consent to spend time together talking about issues and then put them before the people to where we wouldn't need government. And so tell me how AI can facilitate that.
Yeah. So my opinion is that it'll be a digital version of that. And there might be physical meeting places, but it will all be digital outreach. That's my opinion on it. Not all of it, but a majority of it. And like, I would say that it would be a poll instead of a push, meaning you just broadcast on the radio. Say, tune in this time with your app and submit, and then we'll go through some. So everybody, I think a town square is much a better idea than cross section. My opinion, though. But then it's like, yeah, how do you bring it as close to neutral as possible in every way so you don't politicize it? How can you do anti-political, built-in anti-political as a systemic?
The thing I see is right now everything's polarized, and how do we get to the place where it's consensual? I mean, it's like in Taiwan, they did this thing where they could measure how close you were to an idea, whether you were against it, for it, or whatever. And what the graph looked like, there was a few down on this end and a few down on this end, but a big bunch in a certain area. And that was the general consensus. And if there was some way we could measure that, which we can, I think that that's what we need to do with AI is use these apps that people, they just register their feelings towards a certain subject, and we see how many go in each direction or whatever. I don't know, but anyway.
Better yet, my opinion on this, and this is controversial, but just let it listen to you over the day.